Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to say hello and welcome to a fresh, brand new edition of the program Ashford Garley Live on British Radio Africa. Today is Monday, the 26th of December 2022. And as always, this is the day the Lord has made. We will always rejoice and be glad in it. Father God, we give you praise, we give you honor, we magnify your name. In the name of Jesus, we've given you thanks. With that said, folks, some heard the name, some heard people talk about it. You've gotten the opportunity tonight to finally put the face to the voice. This is yours truly. The medicine of the microphone, the golden voice of Liberia, Africa's media doobie-doo extraordinaire. The brother who doesn't eat iron, but he's definitely stronger than a lion. Jire, situpayege, jebonblo ranja kuame jireji. The broadcast commissioner, yours truly, Ashford Garley, the giant. Welcome. And it's time to give it up to Ojuku, Tage, Edwin Freeman, Hashim Family, Yvette Cephas, Josephus Rogers. It's been a long time, my brother. Raymond Clark, Auntie Ruby, Mr. Bobby Wiles. You know, Bobby Wiles is a big-time promoter. Bobby Wiles, how you doing tonight? I also see Miss Wilhelmina Clark. She's in the building as well. Wilhelmina Clark is in the building. Famous Awaji. A. Kamara. Some of these names are so hard to say. Mark Morris is all. Mark Morris, been a long time, my brother. He said, "Welcome back, Mr. Gotti." Papi Savior calling, but man, we need to talk, man. We need to compare notes, you know. And I see David Sigui. Let me go ahead now. Philip Paswa is in the building. Former Deacon. And I see Mrs. Lexi Brooks Roberts. Would you please unmute your phone and come up and give us a little gist of what we expect to unfold here tonight? Mrs. Lexi Brooks Roberts, are you there? Wonka Duo, Mr. Garley, and many things for the hardware you say. Hey, Lexi, how you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm better than good and better than most. How was your weekend?
My weekend was awesome. Thank you very much. How was yours?
It was fantastic. You might want to please adjust your camera.
You can't see me?
Can't see you. Running Man is in the building. Melvin Deeks. Oh, man.
Better?
Much better.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. Do your
Good
thing.
evening and welcome to everyone. Hope you had a wonderful Christmas as we continue to celebrate Christmas. Good evening and welcome to another exciting edition, a Monday night edition of Bridge Radio Africa with your host, Ashford, the Giant Garley. We are coming to you live from Bridge Radio Television and Bridge Radio YouTube channel. You can also catch us on Instagram.com, Bridge Radio Instagram.com. I am your co-host, Letty Brooks Roberts. We have few house rules for you tonight. We ask that you please be respectful of each other. Please be respectful of our host. Most importantly, please be respectful of our guests. What you write is just as important as what you say. So please be respectful. Please grab your drink of choice or your meal of choice, your snack of choice. Make yourselves comfortable as we come to you this Monday night with the country Conga Divide. The series continues as we have our special guest that will be introduced to you by Mr. Garley. Back to you, sir. Trying to adjust my camera.
And Merry Christmas to all of you. I'm pretty sure you had a great Christmas. My own sister has been a long time. Kweye, Ya Martin Kweye is in the building. Jansen Dolo is also here. Glendy Jane Junior. What's up, Glendy? It's been a long time, my sister. Pretty sure you're having a blast, and it's been a long, long time. Colin Marsequard. I see Raz Sudansky. And I also see Melvin P. Dix. At this time, I'd like to introduce the rest of the panelists and guests in the building.
Good evening, ladies.
Good evening.
Okay, well, ladies, welcome to the show. First, how did you spend the Christmas? Let us begin with Mrs. Goa, Grace Goa. Welcome to the show, Grace.
Thank you, Ashford. Thanks for having me. And my Christmas went very well. Beautiful as always. I tell God, thank you for His grace upon my life, my family. And I tell Him, thank you for seeing another Christmas 2022. Thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Ade.
Good evening, Ashford. Good evening to the audience. Good evening to the fellow guest families. I'm glad to be back on this evening. My Christmas it went very well. I spent it quietly, and that's what went forward to a prosperous new.
Mrs. Edith Gonglo Ware.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, my fellow panelists on this platform tonight. I had a great Christmas with my family. We had a very nice family time yesterday, and like Ashford likes to say, I am better than good, right? Or I'm greater than good.
Better than good.
I like that. I like that. I'm better than good. I think it's something to copy as well. I had a very good Christmas. And I hope, everyone else did.
Okay, and, the phrase "I'm better than good." I picked it up from the guy called Les Brown. He always says that.
I like that. I'm
I
better than good.
I have to clear that before somebody attack me for educational fraud.
Thank you.
Well, folks, on a very serious note, where do we start from tonight? How do we continue to move forward in this debate as we talk about the Congo and country divide? Where do we start from? Let me bring in Mrs. Goa.
Thank you. I think the reason for this whole conversation is for us to enlighten our people, for us to educate them on the reason why we are all Liberians and we should look at each other with love, regardless of where we're from. Although we are diverse, because there are ethnic groups and there's tribes and everything. By the end of the day, especially when it comes to voting in our country and when it comes to governance, and we should always try to vote the right people in because of the right reasons. It's not because they come from any tribe or because they were part of your ethnic group. And that's the reason why we brought this conversation, for people to see that Liberia as a whole, we are one. So trying to push a certain group of people out of the way and stay in that position. It's not right for our country at this point because we have seen it. There have been a war fought already. Hundreds of thousands of people have died from this. People were killed, and families are being destroyed. Some people, they lost their entire generation in the war, and they are alone on this earth because of all the things we've been through. Why are we still here? Why are we seeing that if Yaba wouldn't want to be president and he went to school and he's educated and he played, I mean, he has the credentials, he also have the experience. Why we can't just put Yaba Willow? Does he have to be a parliament first? And we want our people to see that no, he doesn't. Once he's a Liberian and he was born there, he lived there, his parents are from there, he sounds like us. We have to give him the chance because we want our country to be moved in the right direction.
Okay. Mrs. Addy.
Yeah, initially when we brought the conversation to the forefront was to come together as one people, as Liberians, reconcile our differences, try to heal our hurts, whichever side it is, whatever narrative that both sides are putting out there. The goal is to come together to let go of our hurts, talk about the conversation where we all went wrong, apologize to each side, and then move forward. That's the goal of the conversation. Now, we started off with trying to lay a premise for the conversation, and we seem to be backtracking, and we don't want to backtrack. That's the reason why we're here. For many years, I don't know how old Liberia is now. All we've done is backtrack, and we are not getting anywhere, and so we want to move forward. So we laid a premise. Now, if what both sides got is premise, that is not the conversation we want to be going back and forth with. The conversation we want is how do we move forward? How do we?
Mrs. Edith Gonglo Ware.
Thank you. And like the other two panelists have said, I think in my mind, it is to establish.
The internet seems to be going back and forth, in and out.
Okay. Am I clear now?
Yeah,
is it okay?
You're loud.
Much better?
Yeah.
Okay. So, like I was trying to say, according to my colleagues here tonight, the reason for this discussion was to see where we went wrong as a nation, and then how we can heal ourselves and come together and make a forward movement. And I have no objection to that. The only addition I will make is that in order for us to move forward, we have to write some of the information that each side has. And I think we established that last week. In order for you to fix a problem, you have to know the root cause of the problem. You have to know where the problem started. And from that point on, you can now make a decision as to how to solve that problem. So I don't think the discussion was wrong in the first place to start with the history, how we got this far, how the country was formed, what were some of the early missteps, and how those early missteps have informed today's decision and today's destruction of the country, today's misrule, or I should say continual misrule of the country. I think if we continue along that line, we're going to be educating as we go along. And in my mind, at the end of the whole ball game, all of us as Liberians will see the need for a holistic approach, a unified approach to a reconstruction of our country, or I should say, a construction of our country. That's how I see it. And I don't think that the conversation has been wrong at all. I think it's healthy, it's respectful, and it is intended to erase some misinformation and to bring the right information. As we share this information, we share the sources of our information, our listening audience will also be learning as well.
Brother Rennie Darpo. Will you please unmute your phone?
Yes. Good evening to everyone. Again, it's another pleasure to be here and honor to be in the midst to discuss yet another edition of the Congo versus the Native, the ideas. So I'd like to say thank you guys so much for the opportunity and post happy Christmas as we look forward to the new year. My apology, I'm not able to get to you guys yesterday, but I'm here today.
Okay. Okay. So I want you to begin the conversation tonight, since you are the only guy uh, on as one of the panelists besides the host. I want you to begin the debate tonight.
Okay, so I believe that we are not yet to reinvent the wheel. Why? Because we have had a serious deviation in the leadership of our country and how it started. We have the breakdown of the 1980 era, which look at the elite class versus the lower class in terms of equality, equity, and transparency. We have an issue in 1990 that led to the complete dismantlement of our democracy. And then between 1991 to 2005, we had a series of different warring faction meeting to find a solution to the country. Everyone has done everything in our weak ways, whether it is ECOWAS, Monetary Union, the UN, the United Nations, the United States. They all understood our problems. And what did they get out of there? One, they decided to bring in the Good Governance Commission, a guideline that should have taken off from where we started to put the pieces together. Because everyone that participated in our country, Ashford, they were all at the table discussing why we went to war, why we did not like what other people accomplished. So the question here is, we have all the ingredients, but how do we mix it up together? Today, I see politics is the key component that is destroying what the international community have put together. So I think as we look forward to the new year and on this discussion, I think we should place emphasis on what we have achieved. What are those documents? What are the content of those documents? What did the document accomplish that we see today that are not being implemented? And I'll be very specific here. For example, the Good Governance Commission, the Good Governance Commission was established to ensure that the recommendations that were made from all the meetings that were held by all the warring factions, that the president after Judy Bryant should ensure that those things be put in place. For example, the office of the ombudsman. The office of the ombudsman is supposed to be the referee between the government and the people of Liberia. Have we put those things in place? Secondly, the Economic and War Crime Code. It is upon the Liberian people to ask their national legislators to bring those things into some sort of implementation. Why are these things up to now we have not gone into it? It's a personal interest. So I think what we have on hand, the documentation that have been presented to us as the root cause, the post-war autopsy report that created the Good Governance Commission, why we are not carrying all these things, because this should have defined a new direction for us in everything we do. But I see politics ruining what we have today. So the question from me to the panel is, why are we having carry out the Good Governance Commission? Because if you look at the TRC, as part of the process, we have people from the Turbo family, we have people from the Dole family, we have people from different warring factions. They all came and told their stories. But why we having put this thing into a part to create a chemistry that will give us the byproduct so that we can begin a perfect journey. There are a lot of challenges out there aside from our internal conflict. By the year 2030, the workforce in Africa will be in huge demand. Where do we see the Zogos? Where do we see the young people that will continue to, say to them that the future belongs to you guys? By the year 2050, out of five people on the face of the planet, you will have 4 that will be African. Where do we stand? So I will leave it at that. And
Mrs. Addie, does that in any way sound like we are moving forward? Unmute your phone, please.
Not to me. My opinion, what Randy just teach than what we what I'm because establishing the team and many in and all of that doesn't take away what's in the hearts of men. It doesn't take away what's in the hearts of people. So for me, what's in the hearts of people, what they have learned is from generation back or from now. Like last week when Randy said that most of the divide, most of the rhetoric about country and CONGAU is a political strategy. That is a hate strategy that is being used for people to accomplish success. And that is where to a heart that hasn't been faced, that has been reconciled because of what we've been hearing from the past and what we are hearing now going forward is what I'm interested in.
I think her phone is in and out though.
I mean, the reception is pretty
No,
bad.
but there's a feedback because somebody else.
Rabbi Adi, can you mute yourself?
I should mute myself?
To start the elimination process as to where the sound
Okay,
is.
sure. Let me do that.
So do I still have a feedback?
No, you don't. Go ahead.
So I was saying that the TRC and the implementation of the TRC, that's something governmental. That's for those who in the seat of authority to pursue that, to push it forward so that action is taken. But what we're talking about personally, like I say, is what is in the hearts of Liberians, what's driving the hate to become wider. It has to do with rhetoric. Some has to do with wrong history. Some it has to do with a lot of stuff, probably any other. But I'm interested in talking about the government will do what they have to do. That's their responsibility. That is not
Okay. Well, Mrs. Goa, let us hear from you.
We didn't hear very well because when one person talking, everybody got to mute themselves. Else the echo will be out there. So I didn't even understand what he was saying. I think everybody should mute their phone when she speaks, and then before we come on, then we unmute ourselves. You see what I'm saying? I don't know.
I think everybody's
I think it has a lot to do with her location because we're all muted.
right. I think it has to do with either the location.
Are you muted?
I can mute now if you want me to.
Yeah. If you want to say what she said again, because we can hear her.
Okay, Vera, please unmute the phone and repeat your statement.
okay. To you guys, are you guys hearing feedback?
No feedback. Go ahead.
Okay, so what I said was that Randy laid out some things and he talked about the TRC and implementation of the TRC. Maybe it's a place to begin. And he said a couple of other things. And I said that for me personally, the conversation is about the hate that is in our the hate that is in our individual hearts. And so that's what I'm concerned about because there's been so many wrong history, so many wrong rhetoric. And last week, Randy said that the CONGAU and country divide, when we were talking about it, he said most people use it as a political strategy. They use it as a political tool. So they're using the divide, they're using hatred in my mind as a political strategy to get to become successful, and which is causing more problem because the problem already exists that we cannot solve. And for people to be taking a particular narrative, to be using it as a political strategy to lead them to higher power, I think that is absolutely wrong. So I'm more focused on what is in our hearts. How do we come together as a people, as opposed to what the government has to do? The government is in place for a reason. They have to take action. They have to push for action concerning the TRC and whatever else is implementation. That's their job. That's not for me to do it for them.
Mrs. Goa?
Yeah.
Focusing on the TRC, according to Vera, is not her priority right now.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100%.
1 minute. There's too much hate within the amongst our people. the so-called country people are bitter, and the so-called Congo people are bitter as well. They both call each other names, and this has got to stop. This is the only country we have. Nobody can rightly say they own the land. This land belongs to all of us. So how do we avoid this and move forward as the people of the country instead of one administration comes in and the people say the country people need to get out, and then when the other people come, no more Congo person will be president again. All this nonsense. How do we eradicate this?
I will agree with you 100% on what she said, because we are not politicians. So I know Rennie, he's a politician, so he will look at that side, the aspect of that side. We are not looking at that side because, in fact, we would like to see that politics have really destroyed our country in a sense, because everybody want to be politicians. Some people never went nowhere to be politicians. They never went nowhere to be a media person, but then all of a sudden they hold these high, degrees, and they're saying that they are politicians and they are journalists and things like that. And the things that they preach to the people has destroyed the country in a whole. So now, well, moving forward, we don't care about how the government implement whatsoever they need to implement. Which we will wish that they do that, but we are not politicians, so we will expect the politicians, that the real politicians, the seasoned ones, to get after the government to do that. But we're saying that until our school systems are equipped with the right information, until the history that was given as Liberian history when we were students in Liberia, what we were told, the pioneers that landed in the country and created Liberia, until we get to know these things, until our children are taught these things in school and get to know the real history, and the people stop preaching divide. When Rennie came on, he said, oh, the Conquer voices, the native. This is not about voices. Conquer and native divide. This is what we're seeing here. So until these things are put in place, which will be good for the government to implement what Rennie is saying, after they do what they have to do, and the school system start to be good again, and they start to preach and teach the children the truth instead of lying and giving them wrong information, for these people, these children that are coming up for their generation to not be filled. As we are struggling now, we had to leave Liberia and come to America, and our whole youth were taken away from us. I never got to go to my senior prom. I graduated high school in Liberia, yeah, but they never had prom because everything was turmoil. So everything was taken away from us. Now we're supposed to be the ones that are supposed to help our next generation to have those things in place for them to move forward. But how can we teach these children these things, and we are lying in the very history of Liberia, trying to eradicate one group of people, and the next group of people stands there and say, yes, this and that and the other. And that's why we started from where we started from. Congo people, native people, they are all Liberians. We are all one, and we should see us that way. Although we are diverse, but at the end of the day, we are Liberians, and we should give each other the fair chance.
Okay, now let us go to Mr. Addy, then we'll come back to Mrs. Webb. Mr. Addy, the Reverend Addy.
So first of all, compliments of the season to all of you wonderful panelists and viewers of this highly esteemed program. My sincere condolence to the family of Dr. Cassell, Bindu Coleman Cassell, and the rest of the children. Actually, if I heard you right, I think the panelists are more concerned about how do we breach this divide and move ahead in the context of reconciliation. Now, there are others who may say, well, we cannot reconcile without examining some of the issues that have led to the hurt that we face today. Now, as panelists, as this young generation of people who want to see Liberia reconciled, it's only imperative and important that as a people, we discuss this with a sense of objectiveness, sense of transparency, being able to recognize the place where we can put accountability. And in the context of implementing the TRC, transitional justice is highly important. We truth seeking for prosecution, among several other things. So these are realities that we have to address. And if this generation is able to aptly and in the spirit of peace address this, I think we could temper down the rhetoric that many of our politicians, some of our politicians rather, are trying to promote, that is in fact affecting the divide we have today.
Mrs. Webb, please unmute your guys and go ahead.
Thank you so much. I'm hearing myself.
Well, folks, if you're not speaking, could you please, Mr. Adi, could you
I'm
please?
hearing myself. Okay, thank you. Am I clear?
Loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. So, like all of the panelists have said, I see two schools of thought here. I see one that talks solely about reconciliation and healing our hurts over the years. And then I see another school of thought that talks about looking at the foundation of our hurt and see how we can learn from that in order to bring about the much needed reconciliation. Both school of thought, I believe, are correct. And if we want to, we need to synchronize all two. Because in order for us to see how we can heal ourselves, like I said, we have to first accept where we've been, the mistakes we've made, so that we can learn from it. In this country, people talk about race relation. They talk about slavery. They talk about all of that. The reason is you cannot continue to sweep the issue of race under the carpet and think that suddenly one day there will be this hallelujah chorus where the blacks and the whites will just get along smoothly. People must know what has happened in the past. Having said that, um, one of the panelists mentioned about the issue of good governance not being much of a concern as the issue of hate is. But what brought about the issue of hate? The issue of hate didn't come from the sky. It's a byproduct of poor and terrible governance system in our country that has wreaked havoc on the people of Liberia. From history, from government to government, successively, people have led our country wrongly. And because of that poor leadership, it has brought about the kind of hate that we're seeing today. It's just been a little more pervasive today, but it didn't start today. You know, when things happen and it is not addressed, when people are angry and the anger is being considered as maybe a noisy minority, for lack of better, choice of phrase, or they're being phrased, they're being dubbed as talking blah blah blah, like President Weah stated recently, and you treat that as being a non-issue. Over time, that it creates hatred in them, the anger. And that anger translates into the kind of public hatred that we see. And then it explodes. We saw that during the war. So I believe that all of what we are seeing today is a byproduct of bad governance. And then the issue of the TRC was also mentioned. The TRC is important. Somebody mentioned, I think it was Dapo, who talked about all of the international conferences and regional conferences that Liberian warlords and political leaders attended during the time of our war. Why was the United Nations, the ECOWAS peacekeepers, or peace negotiations, why did they consider the establishment of a good governance commission if our issue was not based on governance issue? Of course, they established that because it was a foregone conclusion based on study, based on scientific findings, that the level of destruction in our country is the foundation of that is purely anchored in poor governance of the state.
Thank
That is why they established the Good Governance Commission. So to go forward, these institutions must be fully functional, but they cannot be functional if we don't have a leader that understands its significance and that understands the impact of poor governance on the unity of the country and the survival of its people. So all of what we are saying, for me, they're all interrelated. There is none that is absolutely independent all by itself. They are all dependent on one another. Bad governance causes war and caused hatred. It caused the overthrow of a legitimately elected president. It caused the death of people, innocent people died. It caused the strapping of people to the poles to be shot broad daylight. It caused over 300,000 lives to be destroyed, properties in millions to be destroyed. And today our country is struggling for coming back. And that poor leadership continues. It keeps compounding. So to start that, we need a leader that can start the rebuilding based on good governance.
Thank you. We'd like to welcome Mr. Emery Benson Nicole, Dr. Bounty Kulat. Honorable Bobby Wiles is also here tonight. And let us now go to Mrs. Ide.
Yeah, I kind of Mrs. Conglow said that the I guess it's part of it. Part of the hate is from poor governance, but I don't think that's where the hate started from. Though I think the hate started from in the beginning when the rejection happened, when brothers and sisters were sold into slavery. That's where the hate started from, because you can't sell somebody into slavery that you love. You will sell somebody that you hate, somebody that you detest, somebody who you consider less than you is the person you will sell into slavery. I think that's where the hate began. And it didn't stop there. It continued even after, when the slaves were in the West, and people were still there going on with their hatred among themselves, those who were there. And then when the free slaves went back, it even got worse, because when they went back, they were still rejected. That's hate. I don't think it started from bad governance, though. I mean, later on down the line, maybe bad governance came into place, whatever people would consider bad governance, which is debatable in my mind. But I don't think that's where hate started from. I think it started from when you took your brother and your sister and sold them into slavery. That's where it began.
Okay, we'll go
That's
to.
why we Ashford quickly, and that's why I was saying when we had the first conversation, the initial conversation, I said each side has to be accountable. As long as one side don't want to be accountable for where stuff happened, their conversation is not going to go anywhere. The American Liberians has to be accountable for what they did, and people who are considered indigenous have to be accountable. The accountability is not on one side; it's on both sides, and that's the only way we will reconcile and move forward.
Okay. Before we go to Mrs. Go, I would just allow Mr. Dapo to come and respond to that. Then we'll go to Mrs. Goa, then Mr. Adi.
Yeah, Ashford. Again, for me, I am very strategic. For me, I'm very collective in my observation. With what everyone has said so far, it makes sense. Even from the day people were exported from Africa into slavery, it was not just Liberia where the slave came from. Today, Ghana is welcoming back free African American to Ghana to live and relive their lives. And there are other countries, including Senegal. But the issue with us, I think, is the lack of understanding of where we're supposed to start. Like I said, the system of bad governance finally came to an end after every successful try in 1989. It was when the entire system of governance broke down. We had the issue in 1980, we had the issue in 1989, and we went down. Now, the opportunity was given to all Liberians from every sector of that country to sit at the Accra Summit. In that summit, and I would encourage everyone to read the document. Don't judge what these people have gathered as form of information. Don't just come and make statement or understanding those things. For example, I mentioned about the TRC. The TRC, it was just a step in the healing process. But there were other things such as decentralization. When we look at the 131 years of governance, why superintendent up to now are not elected? How do we integrate the school system? If we are able to elect representative and senator from the different county, why can't we decentralize election of superintendent, mayor across? The fundamental key reaction to what we experienced in the past is by giving shared responsibility. Now, the Good Governance Commission is not just limited to TRC. It is limited to things that were discussed at the Accra Summit. And that's why it is important to look at those documents, the content of the document, to discuss them. We have legislators that have legislated the Good Governance Commission to work alongside with the government. It's like they are the referee, the linesman, and those who look into the VAR. I'm not saying, but what I'm saying here is what we have in place. For example, why up to now we are not established the office of the ombudsman? Can we define the office of the ombudsman? What is the role of the ombudsman? All these strategic institutions and leadership that we're supposed to put in a country will further enhance and advance our collaboration. But when we put aside these documents, it means that we are going back to our own selective way of doing things rather than looking at things from being Liberia-centric. The centricity of Liberia means whatever good for me should be good for the other. Whatever we disagree upon should be something that we should accept in the eyes of our institution, in the eyes of our laws, our policy. Why aren't we carrying these things out? That's the question. And that document is the guide that will take us through. Whether somebody is accountable, that document will tell you where are the locations that we need to look in that document that will hold people accountable. Lastly, we have been told, whether it is Allen White, whether it is the UN ambassador, that in order for us to have an established war crime code in our country, the people of Liberia must call for it. There are some people in the administration, especially at the legislative level. When last have you seen them go into the community and say, look, we run a democratic system of governance here. You guys, the one that's supposed to petition us to move forward with those things. Who is carrying the education? People are only using cosmetics, politics to divide and conquer people for their own benefit. Until we get back to that document. Lastly, the TRC in Sierra Leone, the TRC is being taught from elementary school to high school. Do you see why Sierra Leone are going through this process? Because the education, Sierra Leone got their own governance system document are presented to them, but we failed to implement this thing across both and that's why the feeling is coming in here.
Thank you, Rennie. Mrs. Goa.
I would like to applaud Rennie Dabo. Jesus. The man was baptized, yeah? I would like to applaud you, Mr. Dabo, because you see, the Ghanaians, although they already established their country, it was not even linked to American Liberians, or it was not even linked to say American Ghanaians. And still, after all was said and done, when the Americans, the Black Americans, decided to go back to Ghana, go back to Africa, they're going to different countries, going back to South Africa, going back to this. But the Ghanaians, they were the most ones that accepted the African Americans into the country. Those people now building estates in Ghana. Estates. When I want to go do my research, I was thinking, I said, I already need to get a house in Ghana. But they have a whole plan of lots of land that they're building estates, and the Ghanaians welcome them there. But our people, Liberia was not even established at the point in time. And the American Liberians came back to Africa, which I think that they were Liberians before the country was established, because they are Africans. So we were supposed to accept them in the country as one of us. They are our brothers. They came back, and then this country was created within these two different sectors of people. And all they needed to do was come together. But one group of people refused to accept the other group, and the other group of people said, well, we came here, we created this, and so we would do what we have to do to be accepted. And there were back and forth documentations and everything, and then plus a land was born and all that thing. That is back in history. But the thing is that we are still Liberian, although they came and they made mistakes. And even at that, when they made mistakes, the other group of people came, the coup happened, they made their own mistakes. So we see that the divide cannot divide us any longer. We are all Liberians, and we need to see each other that way. And what Rennie is saying, I agree with it. If they can go by the document and implement these things that the people have put forth, because the people study what the real problem is with Liberia. And that's why they did with Sierra Leone, and Sierra Leone is going on the track. Our children have to know the real things that are happening and that needs to be changed. And stop trying to blame one another in everything, like, oh, this the person did this and you did this, and we are the son of the soil, and we that what birthright. Until we know that nobody have birthright to that land, but we all have birthright together. And we have to move forward with that, teaching our children so Liberia can be a better place tomorrow. That we will know that although Liberia, the goodness and the enjoyment part of Liberia were taken away from our generation, but we still here working hard for the children that are coming up to enjoy our country in oneness and in whole. And being taught the rightful thing. So that's the reason why I applaud Rainy. Like Rainy was just baptized with I don't know what he was baptized with, what he was baptized with. So and these are the things, and I'm really happy to hear Rainy say that, and I agree with him.
Thank you, Mrs. Goa. Let us now go to the Reverend Idatuzade.
So I am highly impressed that our conversation has changed from the trajectory of who did what and who brought what and why we have the divide. I thank all of us on this panel, and I'm hoping that as Liberians are watching, it is time for us to address the issue of forgiveness, peace, so that we can all be reconciled. Governance is certainly intertwined with this because the leadership you have in place will determine or set the tone or the trajectory for a wholesome functioning society, in the words of Wilmar Talbot. Until we come to this reality, it's a challenge. A lot of people will use displacement of anger against the backdrop of economic disparity. When people are comfortably able to make money in their own country and live a life that is meaningful, that is anticipatory of a future they imagine, there will be no need for country Congo. Because when my investment is in the country and I see that you're trying to divide us, it becomes very clear that I was saying, listen, I don't know what you're talking about, but we need to maintain the stability of our nation so that we can all economically, educationally grow together and build a society that I can look at you and be proud of you, and you can look at me and be proud of me. But this idea of country Congo, I think it's becoming a tool for separation by politicians who may not see their way clear in our election system. So it is important, that reconciliation is not just the resolve of government. It is the mandate of every individual Liberian. Personally speaking, I have no problem with somebody saying he's Biu or he's Congo or he's Kwa among several others. I have no problem with that. Okay, your tribe is your identity, but is your tribe greater than the national good? No. So if we can all work together for a society that we can peacefully coexist and enjoy the shared resources, we'll not have a problem with this issue. This issue of land rights, let it be established that those who went into slavery once lived on the continent of Africa. By the 12th century, that's when they and the Gola people went to Liberia. By the 16th century, that when the Gio Kra or people started to go to Liberia. So are we saying now that those of our brothers who have come home or who went home back in the days and needed a place to call a home, should that hate still be transitioned to this modern generation of ours? We can do better than that as a generation. If we must have a great Liberia that is peaceful, and it is the mandate of not just the president or the government, of pastors, of students. We have to change this narrative that we're one people. Until that happens, we'll be pulling back and forth, and who's better? You want to tell me that our forefathers are still preaching the rhetoric to these modern times that we're living in? You didn't personally sell slaves or sell brothers, sorry, not slaves, but enslaved people into slavery. All of us are here today discussing this. We can come together as one people and stop projecting that when somebody says he's Congo, that means he's better than the other person. Or better yet, when you say you're Congo, that means you're better than the other person. The fact of the matter is, our forefathers had some mistakes across the spectrum of our governance system. But we, as this generation, what can we do to reconcile Liberia?
I think we're getting somewhere. Mrs. Ware.
Yes, thank you so much. And I would like to agree with my fellow panelists for the direction that we all have taken. Like everyone is saying, which is true, rightly so. The TRC, the good governance institution, all these institutions or committees were put together to help us mend the fences and right the wrong of the past. So I think that its implementation and enforcement is very, very cardinal, is important to our forward movement. Having said that, I also believe that it takes leadership. Yes, leadership at all levels. Like Reverend Adi said, the church leaders have a huge part to play because they lead congregants, they lead people, bunch of people. Churches, in fact, in Liberia, have so much clout and so much power to set the stage and reset the tone of our national dialogue. But the primary, the most important is the government, it's the leader, the political leaders of our country. They must see reason and have the political will and know that no semblance of exclusion or marginalization can help any society or any group of people to thrive. Because any form of exclusion, whether it's the child, whether it's based on tribe, is based on section, is based on your look, the creed or color, whatever it is based on, no exclusion and marginalization can set a society on a path to recovery or a path to development. Exclusion by itself is a recipe for underdevelopment. I will end by this little story. I had an opportunity once to travel to Bangkok for a global anti-corruption conference. And while attending that conference, I met an old Thai professor. He kind of, because where I was, there were all, other color skin people. I was the only dark skinned person. So of course I would stand out. So during our break, he walked to me and just during conversation, asking me where I'm from, and I described where I'm from and all that. The next question was, what's your national language? And I said to him, well, I was baffled by that, to be honest. I said, my national language is a version of the English language that we call Liberian English. Only Liberians understand it. And I thought I was making an impression on the guy. And after talking, he just said to me, I take it that your country is extremely underdeveloped because what I'm hearing is there is no national cohesion. There's nothing that ties you people together. So everyone is, committed to their little enclave, their tribe, their, lineage, because there's nothing that holds you together as a nation. So that undercuts your development. It is true from development science perspective. It is true when we are all segmented the way we are on the basis of tribe. You meet a Liberian, the first thing you say, what country you from, what tribe you speak, or what dialect you speak. Excuse me. My tribe should not define me. My county should not define me. My character should define who Edith Gonglowe is. And so I agree with everyone here tonight. But for it to take hold and take root, it takes leadership. The Ghanaian parable says a herd of lions led by a sheep can be defeated by a herd of sheep led by a lion, which means leadership is everything. It takes a leader to set the national tone. That's why we need a leader who himself or herself is already aware and conscious of these issues and how our division and fragmentation is affecting the movement, the forward movement, the development of our country. It takes a leader who understands that and who is committed to bridging that divide, that gap, which by that commitment and that understanding, it will inform the decisions, the national decisions they make. Those decisions will be based on merit. Because if you start to do, a preferential treatment, you are putting me into position or appointing me into position only because maybe I come from your tribe or I come from your county or my auntie. Those kinds of things I mean, I know in every society, there will always be some semblance of who know you, but when it defines the mode of your national governance or your government operation, it becomes a problem. And so when people feel alienated, I will continue to say this in any governance, and this has nothing to do with Congo. It has nothing to do with country specifically. It has more to do with all leaders, whether you Congo, you country. I hate to use the word Congo because the Congo people are not even American Liberians. These were people who were on the ship after slavery was abolished, and they were taken from all over Africa, and they were captured along. They didn't even reach America or any developed country, and they were captured and brought back when they called them the Congos.
Thank you.
So I hate to talk about Congo, Congo, Congo. It's a misapplication of the word. We are talking about specifically African Americans. I mean, American Liberians who returned to Liberia, who were Africans from different backgrounds, but needed a home on
Thank
the
you, Mr.
continent
Square.
of Africa. And so we need to call a spade a spade.
Thank you.
This is about leadership, is leadership failure. We need to put it right, and we need the right leaders to bridge this gap that keep putting us farther and farther. And it keeps getting wilder and wilder. Now you got tribes against tribes, and within tribes, you got district against district, towns against towns, because we didn't solve the first problem. So now it's getting larger and larger, and it's fragmenting further, and it's keeping our country further apart. Even within the tribes, there are huge division. So it's about division here, and the leaders must set the tone.
The next time you speak, I will take away some minutes from you because you spoke lengthily. This is where, okay, having said that,
So you've been timing everybody here, Ashford.
yes.
I think we are all speaking with passion here tonight, which is good.
This is British Radio Africa, Ashford Garley Live, and this program comes on 3 days in a week: Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. On Wednesday, we will be talking about the electoral process and what it has delayed. And then on Friday, of course, it's the usual political soccer game. If you are watching from a country that is already Tuesday, I want to let you all know that tomorrow is going to be my birthday. I'll be turning one year older tomorrow. So show some love to the giant. You can see the Cash App and Zelle up there. Number one, number two, we're trying to raise some money so that we can have our voices heard in Liberia on some of the local radio stations in Liberia as we move forward to elections. Okay, now each of you will have to go around the room with 3 minutes. Am I fair? 3 minutes, okay, and hopefully it can take us home tonight. So we want to start with Mrs. Vero Addy. Your 3 minutes starts now.
Come on, 3 minutes. So I want to ask the pastor a question, Pastor Eddie Idatus. Can a good, everybody talk about the good leader will set the tone? And my question to you, can a good leader have hate in his heart? And if he has hate in his heart,
Somebody will have to meet the phone. I mean, like, we can hear you.
I wanted to ask Pastor a question. Everybody talk about good leadership will set the tone in the country for the country, for everybody to heal part of the reconciliation process. So my quick question is that can a good leader have hate in his heart? If you can just answer me quick one.
Oh, yes. A good leader can have unresolved anger or hate in his heart. A leader can have that, and he can establish policies that may isolate one ethnic group of people, in the society because of unresolved issues in his heart. Yeah.
Okay, so then thank you. So then moving forward with all the good things that we have said, with everything that everyone has said on the platform.
Can somebody mute their phone? I can't hear Vera because somebody phone.
So with everything that everybody has said on the platform that will bring us to where we want to be as a unit, as Liberians, even though we have our different identities. My thing is that I guess my concern is that you cannot see within a man. A man can present himself to be one thing and he's something absolutely different. Now, with all the documentations that was spoken about, the one that Randy laid out, the Accra Accord or the TRC, and all of those good documents that identify Liberian people problem and how we can come to the table and heal, all that is good and well. But how does that address the hate within a person that you cannot see? Because somebody, and what I realized is that most Liberians are dishonest. Most Liberians don't show what they are really feeling. They don't say what they're really feeling. They pretend a lot. They pretend to be okay. They go with the flow. And then once you put them into a place of position, you start to see a different turn. And at that point in time, they're already there. Then we got to come back to the table to think about how the next time around, we're not going to put them there. I mean, everything is good and well. That everybody just said, my only thing is that we have to be careful because hate is hate. When hate is within you, you have to reconcile for that hate to go away for you to be a good person before I say a good citizen or a good leader. There's a saying that says you can put down what is in your hand. A person can ask you to put down what is in your hand, but not what is in your heart because they don't see what is in your heart. And from my perspective, the divide mostly, is compounded with a lot of other things, but it make the most of the problems we are having. The deepness of the divide that's going on, it is what is in our heart, not what was put down to some conference, some piece paper, not the TRC and stuff like that. That's all good and well. The paperwork can address the outer activities, but I don't know which war and economic crime code going to address the hatred that is in our heart for each other. And that is what we need to talk. We need to focus on that as we focus on everything else to heal.
Jansen Dodo, I want to say thank you for your contribution on the Cash App. Again, my birthday, the CEO of British Radio celebrates his birthday tomorrow. We're going to have a special, even I don't do Tuesdays, but we're going to do a special show tomorrow just for the birth anniversary for the giant. Okay, we want to go to Renin Doppel. Your 3 minutes start now.
Yes, I think in order for us to make progress, it is better that we look at the entire component of what make a better society. If anybody think that hatred is the key component and fighting hatred going to eliminate or bring a better Liberia, think about racism in America. We have all the trial and errors, and yet and still today, we still see these things. But what I think we need to focus on, and I stand by it today, tomorrow, is the assessment report that have been presented to us that clearly identify what have been the deviation, the misunderstanding, the fail to good leadership. How do we establish good leadership? We have to ensure that we commit ourselves to policy. We have to ensure we commit ourselves to regulation. How do we establish a good system of governance? We have to look at the line of what we do with the nursery students, the elementary students. There's nothing wrong with teaching the CONGAU and Native people as long as it is in the context of the academic community. It is the right of the young generation to understand the mindset of those who came before them, how they were thinking. And now, as they go into the society to serve, what are they going to do differently? So I'm saying policy, regulations, laws, as long as we continue to enforce these things. If you can't with hate, what will quiet you down? If you hit somebody, you go through the due process of the law. You be thrown in jail. That would serve an example for somebody who want to come with hate. If you come without any form of understanding of what it means, what it means to run an institution.
1 minute.
For example, we have the LACC, we have the GAC. Why the institution are broken apart? Because we have not established a standard of work that create check and balance. Until we focus on these things and become Liberia-centric, the centricity of Liberia means a hit is a hit, we call it and we punish that. If the centricity of Liberia means if an additional man trying to corrupt the mind of somebody, we see it as wrong, we understand those things. The standard of work will move us forward. Thank you, Mr. Garley, and my apologies for coming so late.
Yeah, no, thank you, and thank you, Mr. Bobby Wiles, for your contribution. Thank you so much. Also, thanks to Ms. Willamette Clark for your contribution as well. Mrs. Grace Gore, your 3 minutes start now, please.
You have to give me 30 seconds first. So I would like to say to the audience that's watching, thank you for watching. I would also like to say that Ashford birthday is tomorrow. And the Zelle and the Cash App number is here, 267-248-5295. The reason I'm pushing for you guys to donate to Ashford is that Ashford is not even going to use that money for himself. This conversation that we are having on this platform is very important that it gets to the people in Liberia. This man wants to pay radio stations for us to be heard on radio stations at work as well to teach our people. So y'all please donate to the Cash App. My 30 seconds is well for that. Then you can start my 3 minutes now.
Go ahead.
All right.
Go ahead.
I would say that hate is a learned behavior. Love is also a learned behavior. You can be taught to hate and you can be taught to love. In America, the people were teaching their children racism. So racism started to take over until they started to go into the schools and tell the people that it doesn't matter about your color. It doesn't matter if you are black or if you are blue. Once you are a human being and you belong in the environment, you belong in the society. And then the children start to go home and teach their parents about love. When a white girl started to take a black boy home and her parents started to make, confusion with that, she said, well, why do you hate him? I saw that on TikTok. I've seen that on social media, Instagram. So we can still teach our people what they're supposed to know. And that hate can be eradicated, slowly, but it will go away. Especially when they start to implement what Rainy is saying. That document, it's a teaching process that will help our people to see the light. And we have to start to shame politicians. The their versus us thing, all the platforms, their versus us because they want the people to win elections, their own qualified or political leaders. We have to come and say, no, our people now, we have work to do. The people in Liberia on the ground and the people here in America, we all have work to do. We have to shame these people and say, no, we are not going to take that any longer. It's not no they versus us. Because in America, when racism is going on, the people shame you nowadays. No, you can't do this. And people go to court for that. So people are put in jail for being racist to people. So until we start to work together, teach our people how to love, their versus us does not exist in our community anymore. All the cheap politicians that never even went to a day of school or being a politician, they cannot defend their rhetorics, but they have to use divide to bring their people forth for people to vote for them. We have to say, no, we are not going to allow it. We will hold them accountable and we will shame them so hate can be eradicated. Not to say it will go away totally, but our people will start to understand that you know what, we are not tolerating this. We are one people. We're going to choose the person who is capable and fit to do the work to change our communities and our society and our district and everything. And this guy called, I think he's a pinner. He came on your platform with this lady. Her name is Sebon. She was on your platform talking about this panel guy who left Indianapolis and went to Liberia after he committed so many crimes here in America. And he went to Liberia. Now he's running for representative. And she was trying to tell the people that he's not capable to do the job. I saw people on her here insulting her and everything. But we were happy that she came up because these are the things that we have to put forward and say, you know what? At least somebody can come and say this person did this, that, and that. And people start to research and look behind and, check on that person, why the person even said that before they can even vote that person into office. But a certain group of people got mad with the lady and they started seeing all kinds of stuff. They started to talk down on her character and start to destroy her personality because she came out to really tell the people that I don't think this guy is the right person to actually sit in this position. In America, before you run for office, they have summoned me to run for office in my community. So before you run for office, they have all the criteria, things that you're not supposed to even have on your record. And one of them is one of the crime that he committed. So once you commit that kind of crime, you go into the private sector. You don't have to run in government position, even if you pay for the crime. You don't have to run in government position anymore. You have 3 violation, a moving ticket or driving ticket here. You cannot go in certain offices in certain cities. So let's just be fair here that if the person is not fit for the position and somebody comes to say we cannot shame these people, we have to look into it as a people. Instead of looking into it as a certain group of people, we have to look at our own people and try to see how we can vote the right people in our community, and the people on the ground needs to do the work. And
Thank
us at the same time. Thank you, Ashford.
you. We'll go to Mr. Addy, then we'll take a break, and then we'll have our closing statements. Mr. Addy.
So I just want to make um
Am I
a brief
excluded?
statement here.
What? Say
Oh
that.
no, please let Mrs. Ware speak. I will be the last. Ashford.
I thought you spoke.
No, in the first round before you started the round,
I'm
the
so sorry.
3 minute
I'm
round,
so sorry, Mrs.
you
Ware.
didn't say you're going to take away
Go
your
ahead.
time.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Mrs. Ware.
No, I thought my punishment is on, so I'm very law abiding. I'm about to take my punishment in good faith.
Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, but
What side?
I can go ahead and then I'll follow him, no
Okay,
problem.
go ahead, that is.
Okay, so one of the challenges we're having in our society is to recognize that um, the term Americo Liberian reference people who came from the Caribbean and the Americas. Okay, the Afro Caribbean and the United States. The term Congo and Americo Liberian became interchangeable because they in our history they settled some 5,000 people from the Congo Basin, so it became an interchangeable term. But predominantly, the folks that came from the States came on the Mayflower from the United States. The people that came from Barbados or the Caribbean, the first ship came on the Cora. All right, so that term was used to cover both people who settled, and it became commonly interchanged by using the word Congo. So yes, there is still Congo people in Liberia today, and as an ethnic group, they do still exist. Now, one of the microaggression I've come to realize is this eradication of identity. There's no more Congo people. Everybody has intermarriage. No. So if we say everybody has intermarriage, does that mean because a Gil man marry a Kwan man, he's no longer Gil? Or if a Basomo marries a Peleb man, they've both lost their identity. So this microaggression needs to stop against the backdrop of erasing people's identity and ethnicity simply because of the political temperature that we find ourselves in today. It is imperative that we begin to recognize that peace must reign, love must reign, irrespective of what our politicians say to divide us. We must stand up as one people, united, indivisible under God, standing for liberty and equality, and a shared distribution of our resources that will economically empower us. Now, we can emphasize the TRC all we want, but in the words of Mrs. Addy, as she stated very clearly, until we as a people make up our minds to stop demonizing one another on the basis of tribe and or ethnicity, Liberia will remain divided as it is. And the reason why we emphasize governance is that the leader has the bullet pulpit. He has the largest microphone to bring the country together, and he can help set the tone. But like I said, it is the mandate of every one of us on this line, our children, every Liberian, to begin to promote the spirit of reconciliation for a greater and better Liberia for
Thank you,
all.
Mr. Addy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Addy. Mrs. Ware, your 3 minutes. Start now, please.
Thank you. I like to say again that for me, I continue to look to leadership because the leader sets the tone. Liberians in general, as we know it historically, Liberians are followers of their leaders. The history is there to prove that. Every leader that comes to power, whatever he or she does, every Liberian wants to be like that leader. From Topmo during the Totman time, where people wore Totman hat because they wanted to look like Totman. Uh, during Tauber time, everybody was using a king and a white suit because they wanted to appear like Taubert. Though people were wearing the country suit and all that, and then come to Ellen Johnson's relief, women were doing a big hair tie and put the brochure with the scarf on their shoulders, trying to mimic the president. So all I'm saying is that the leader for us actually does set the tone. And there are examples all over Africa. Take, for instance, Rwanda. Today, when Paul Kagame took over, he saw that this is a nation that had destroyed itself. Brothers and sisters had been taught centuries earlier to hate each other when the colonial powers favor one over the other. They were setting a tone for that division among the Tutsis and the Hutus. When they slaughter each other, Kagame came to power, he decided that we need to heal the country. There's no more Tutsi, no more Hutus. They do exist, but we are first Rwandians. And so you go to Rwanda, you ask a Rwandan in a taxi, the first thing will say, I'm Rwandan. He will refuse to say whether he Hutu or he Tutsi. So the leaders do set the tone. It depends what that leader view of the country is. And again, no country develops in chaos and division. Absolutely none. Especially when it's so pronounced. There will be development, but it will have challenges. So if Rwanda can do it, after the loss of millions of their citizens within a short period of time, and the country was so devastated that brothers and sisters turned on each other, neighbors slaughtered each other. If they can heal, Liberia definitely can heal, but it takes our leadership at all levels, meaning our political leadership, and then it will trickle down. When the political leaders set the tone and there are punishments for doing what the political system says is wrong, the churches, the schools, the ordinary people will follow suit. I still maintain that we have a serious leadership deficit when it comes to healing our nation, when it comes to uniting our people, and we need to look at that seriously.
Thank you, Mrs. Webb. We'll take a 2 minute break for interlude of music. Then we'll come back and get our closing statements. Amen. When Labro. But people get the cash out there, or the giant celebrating his birthday tomorrow. Show him some love. Okay, folks, if you're just joining us, this is British Radio Africa, Ashford Garley Live, and of course, we come your way Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. On Wednesday, it's going to be tough politics, raw politics. We are going to be discussing the electoral process and why the process has delayed. With that, we'll take a caller, and then we'll come back with a closing statement. We have Aliyu on the line. Hello, Aliyu.
Hello, Ashford. Happy to have you on again. We missed this voice. It's been a while. I was sitting the other day when Letty sent me, I don't know, it was a flyer or something that you were back. I was like, yeah, because you just kind of disappeared from the airways like that. But glad to have you back once more. And I want to say thanks to the panelists for such a very great discussion. I'm glad to see my big sister on there, even though she doesn't know me. Edith Ware, that's one of our Liberian big sisters that we really admire. But I want to set a certain thing straight here.
Just
and Randy tried to
just give her
allude
2
to
minutes,
it, but
please. Give her 2
he's
minutes.
walking on a very fine line.
Yeah.
He's being very careful.
Mhm.
Look, you cannot resolve a problem by ignoring the foundation of the problem. I know we all are talking, and I respect and I expect that a pastor will say, let's just blow the peace pipe and everything will just be like that. That is not how peace comes. In Sierra Leone today, they are working the TRC because, first of all, people own up to their own responsibility, the part they play, they own up to it, they got punished for it, and everything like that. In Liberia, on the other hand, our issue is a foundational issue. The reason the TRC will not be successful is because our founders set the foundation for impunity. All right? When you try to talk about what happened in 1979 about a live bullet killing over 250 people under Talbot, they don't want to hear about that. They say that you versus us. They don't want to hear about that. When you talk about the crew in the American Liberian War, where the crew had bow and arrow, and the American Liberian had actual fire gun and kill hundreds of crew and refused to establish a number of crew people to kill, you talk about that, you're bringing hate. You're bringing division. When you talk about how Tubman was using yacht when bulk of the country did not even have vehicle, and he was smoking pipe and he could kill anybody he wanted to kill.
Our time.
Yeah. They don't want to talk about that.
Thank you, Thank you so
okay,
much.
so what I am saying in essence is, so the newer generation decide they too can do what they want to do, and nobody can do them a thing. So in order for us to move forward, any psychologist would tell you, in order for you to actually to solve your own problem, you have to first accept the problem.
Thank you, sir.
And unfortunately, one side do not want to accept the problem. They just want to brush it up and move on. It's not possible. But thank you for having me. I wish I had more time because we have some of the historical fact of these
Next
things,
Monday.
and not just hate and this and that. Hate doesn't come overnight. Hate builds up over time. Thank you so much.
This is what we're gonna do. We're gonna make you one of the panelists next Monday. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Well, folks, time has caught up with us, and we're gonna go around the room, give you each 1 minute, 1 minute to close up, and then we can close this at night as we get ready for the next phase of the session next Monday. So I will begin with Mrs. Addie. Please mute your phone if you're not speaking. Mrs. Addie, go ahead, please. Your 1 minute starts now, please.
Like I said,
Stanley, you got to admit that thing too. 1 minute is not enough.
I don't have the time, Stanley.
Okay.
Yeah. You want to pay for extra time? No problem. I don't have the time. Go ahead, Mrs. Addie.
Ilatus has to mute.
Okay.
Okay, like I said, and when we started from the first conversation, when we first came on, I said that there has to be accountability on both sides. Both sides did each other wrong. The indigenous did the brothers wrong. The American Liberians that came, they did the brothers wrong. And until both sides can accept that, look, I accept my side of the wrong that I did to you. I'm sorry. Let's move on from here. And until the indigenous can say, look, but I did you wrong also. And I'm sorry for what I did wrong. Let's put it aside and move on. That's how we will reconcile. That's how healing is going to come. And I'm going to continue to say it. As long as we don't do that, I don't care what we put on paper. I don't care what conference we go to sit down. What is in the heart of a man, you can never see. He can sit and agree to something on paper, and then he goes back and do something else. It starts from within us. We must both be accountable on both sides. Then we know that we are getting somewhere.
Thank you, Mrs. Addie. Mr. Dapo, 1 minute, please. Closing.
Yeah, Ashford. So let me say this quickly here, right? The rule of law is the principle on which all person, institution are responsible to carry out their share responsibility. Everything that we have said, we know that we are going to conferences, we survive, and we have put in place the pillars that's supposed to support what make a better system. Whether you got rush, you hit somebody, here is my equation right here. Good governance create leadership. Leadership create the rule of law to protect the Liberian people. Leadership can come from the church. It can come from the school. It can come from the pastors. The rule of law, bitterness, we all reference it from where? From the Good Governance Commission. Until we put this equation together, we go nowhere. That is the equation to a better Liberia.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Welcome.
Mrs. Goa, 1 minute, please. And I mean 1 minute.
I mean, that's it. When we to the caller who called in, when we about to talk about these things, and when we talk about it one-sided, that's the problem. You say you there's a one-sided thing about every other president, but you didn't talk on the other side. But when we talk about how Stephen Allen Benson managed to speak Gola and Dane, he was captured by the Gola and Dane people, and he was in captivity, and he was a Congo man. So when we're talking about these two sides, we have to hold each side accountable. We have to, and then while we're doing that, the TRC laws and documentation has to be implemented, as Rennie said. And while our people on the ground, our mothers start to teach their children from in their house about love, that we are all one Liberian. Although you have your diversity, we will still as one people. And then these things come together. It cannot be taught one hand and before we go to everything have to come together in play, and that's what we are saying. Until both sides have to choose, both sides have to be accountable for what they did and not blaming one set of people. Then Liberia will move forward.
Thank you, Mrs. Goa. Thank you so much, Mr. Adi. 1 minute, please.
Yes. So what is so sad is after we've had this spirited discussion and we are going towards reconciliation, we have a caller who comes in and say, the Congo don't want to acknowledge what they did wrong. And then he begins to list the things that we did. But the fact of the matter is, if it is at the foundation of the core of this conflict, was it the foundation that caused people to die in Nima when young children were put in the well? Was it our forefathers that made that happen?
Thank you.
So we can have these kind of conversations when people come and we are talking reconciliation. He tells me, I can expect the pastor. May he be reminded, I'm a student of political science with emphasis in international relations and conflict resolution. I don't speak purely like that. I'm also highly political in issues. So please bring him on Monday. Let's discuss the history of Liberia so that the Liberian people can hear the truth and we can advance this country beyond this ethnic and atrocities committed by one side while not holding that side
Thank you, Daddy.
accountable.
Thank you so much. Mrs. Ware, take us home. 1 minute.
Thank you so much. I got to be careful because Grace is watching. She keeps sending these notifications. Well, I wouldn't say much. All I can say is for us to make any real leap of progress in Liberia, we need to emphasize. You can hear me? Somebody has their mic. Yes, someone mic is open. So some of my 1 minute go, you got to replace it with Grace, remember? Yeah, so for us to make any leap of progress in our country, I will maintain that it takes leadership. It takes a leadership that focuses on rule of law, that also focuses on making sure that the law prevails in our country. Everybody operates under the ambit of the law of this country. The law, when it's selectively applied, where you have one group that is excluded from being penalized and another group or individuals are being penalized, and selective application of the law all of the time, this helps to erode public confidence. And when the public lacks confidence in the system, then they take the law into their own hand. I'm not saying this is the sole foundation of hate, but that's what perpetuates the kind of hate that we see in our country. And as said earlier, it's not just with the Congo country divide, it's even among and between tribes, and within tribes, in districts. In order for us to curb that, we need a leader that focuses on the application of the laws of our land without exception.
Thank you so much. Well, folks, I want to say a big thank you to all of you. I'll be looking forward to see you all next Monday. And of course, on this Wednesday, we're going to be doing some tough talking on politics. And folks, with that said, Grace, Mrs. Goa, as always, I want to appreciate you, Mrs. Addy, and of course, Mrs. Ware. And Renin and Idatus, thank you so much for coming. I'll talk to you guys next month.
Well, next time I will put my timer on,
Okay.
you know, to put Grace at ease.
Okay.
I see all her comments here. Oh, you were not punished the lady. That's why you were not punished the lady.
You know I love you.
Oh,
Good night to you guys. Good night.
I was going to come here and say, no, let me let Grace have a day.
Oh my God. Mhm.
Okay, good night, everyone.
Good night, folks. Good night, guys. Where's Lexi Brooks Rabbits? Well, folks, that's all the time I have to be with you. God willing, I will be back on Wednesday with a fresh, brand new edition of Ashford Garley Live on British Radio Africa. Until then, tomorrow is my birthday. And guess what? I'll do a special tomorrow night, 8 p.m., just 1 hour, in celebration of May, the President CEO of British Radio Africa. Tomorrow, I'll be 1 year older than I am now. So you might just want to plan to come so that we can together have a blast tomorrow night on British Radio Africa. Until then, please allow me to borrow the wordings of the wise man. Tough times don't last, tough people do. The height of a man is never known until he rises, because there's no second chance to make that first impression. Don't see okra and swallow bone, because you can't hide your nakedness with bathing bucket. When God bless you, don't see that medicine. This is the mastermind, the director of the law, the golden voice of Liberia, the medicine of the microphone, Africa's media doobie-doo extraordinaire. As for the giant, that now you know me, Garley. Have a good night.